Most of you have never heard of the Zombie Hazard Unit. Those of you who have will try in vain to find me after you see this. For the rest of you, the activities of this top-secret working group have never before been revealed until now. They don't want you to know they exist. There are those of us in the community who feel the public has a right to know of the imminent threat we all face. The following is a briefing, covertly recorded, of the Zombie Hazard Unit at work.
All right, take your seats, everyone. We need to get this meeting started. Before we begin, I want to make sure that everybody has picked up their copy of the briefing notes. There are more details. I'm going to give you the outline. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I've called this special meeting of the Zombie Hazard Command because we have vital new information and new problems to discuss. Go through some security. Bear with me a moment. All right, first, a little housekeeping. National Security Order 21Z, it passed. Our operational authority is supreme. Use it. Now back to the topic at hand. As you know, we've been battling a unique biological threat and we've made little progress. Lack of any live specimens. If a body's found at all, it's already permanently dead. Now, we finally have a live specimen. But before we get too excited, let me stress that it's only one. We need more. So why does this problem exist? Well, the reason for problem number one is problem number two. We have an unknown assailant or assailants. Unknown assailant profile. We have no leads as to the identity of the assailant. Ballistics are untraceable. That's not exactly true. We do know at least most of the time they're using Z-Max ammunition. Weapons in use are 9mm, 45 caliber, and edged weapons. Probable gender, male. Body type, they're strong, muscular, athletic. They're well armed and well trained with munitions. They have a possible military or police background, and they're probably skilled in a variety of martial arts to include hand-to-hand combat. If you're on scene, look for someone fitting this profile. Apprehend if possible, eliminate if necessary. For you jokers out there, I know this describes everyone on the Z teams, so know your team members. Problem number three. Identification of infectious agent. Here's where it gets interesting. We now have research notes from a top U.S. scientist who is intimately familiar with a zombie infection. He studied both the pre- and post-mortem zombie condition before PD. He has identified and named the virus, Cryptonecrophagia vulgaris, CNV. It's a retrovirus, and there's no cure. This scientist's notes indicate prions may also be involved in the infectious process. However, at this point, it remains unclear what, if any, role they play. Remember the single live subject I mentioned earlier? Unfortunately, the subject and scientist are one and the same. We do not know how much time he has left before he's no longer of any use, except perhaps for dissection. So we need more live specimens. Keep that in mind during operations. Problem number four, mode of transmission, currently unknown. Transmission modes ruled out: bites, scratches, casual contact, vector infection, droplet, or airborne spread. Some Z team members can attest to the fact that bites and scratches don't spread infection, at least not yet. To date, 12 team members have been wounded while engaged in field operations. They've undergone mandatory 90-day quarantine. None have showed any signs of infection. Not all team members are out of quarantine yet, but we hope they'll be released and return to active duty soon. Problem number five, emerging public awareness of the situation. I'm going to mention each of these points, then talk about them in greater detail. There are things you need to know. First, the Coconut Grove fly-in. Many of you were there. Then there's the Miami incident. Some of you were there. The CDC Zombie Apocalypse Preparedness Release. DHS released a fake zombie preparedness story. Then there's the recent purchases of large quantities of ammunition. About the Coconut Grove fly-in, Z Teams 1, 2, and 3 cleaned down a zombie cell. That got a lot of public attention. Our cover story was that this was an urban assault exercise in preparation for the upcoming UN meeting. For now, our cover story is holding, but one got away. That led to the Miami incident. That should never have happened. About the Miami incident. Some of you were there. Our cover story was bath salts. That was blown when the autopsy results were leaked. There were no bath salts present. We're still dealing with the fallout, and we're investigating the leak. The CDC Zombie Apocalypse Preparedness release, it was sent out against our wishes. Then they changed their story. This brought even more attention to it than if they'd just left it alone. Next, DHS released a fake zombie preparedness story, also against our wishes, but it's out there, so we're going to use it as our cover story. Next month, DHS is running a 1,000-person training exercise in San Diego. Z Teams 2, 4, and 5 will be doing a cleanup operation in another part of the city at the same time. This gives us plausible deniability. I shouldn't have to stress how important this is. Make certain none of them get away. We don't want another Miami incident. About the ammo purchases. We've used news and various media outlets to float the idea that unprecedented large ammo purchases are for government agencies to defend against civil unrest in anticipation of economic collapse. Those of you in this room know all too well that this is a much nicer bedtime story than the truth. Reality is much less pleasant. Right now, the cover story is working. Problem number 6, weakening of current cover stories. Bath salts. In Florida, bath salts was a go-to drug of choice. The autopsy leak created problems for this story. Other drugs, synthetic marijuana and S21, were floating these in Louisiana, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Crazy people were floating this idea in Louisiana, New York, and Chicago. Animal attacks were floating that story in Georgia, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. We estimate 2 years of viability for these cover stories. Finally, problem number 7, public distribution of full disclosure of current operations. Some brainiac has lined up all the recent events and past history like beads on a string. We don't know where he's getting his information, but too much of the actual facts of our operation are woven into the story. It's not coincidence. He's getting his information somewhere. The story is Dr. Eve's Zombie Killer. It's presented as a fictional novel. LabyrinthOfArts.com is an independent website where the book can be found. For those of you who are wondering, we currently have no plans to shut down this website. We need to gather further intelligence, find out what their sources of information are, and plug whatever leaks we find. Right now, John Q. Public does not know what's happening. We'd like to keep it that way. If you have any questions, I'll address them in my office after the meeting. You now have the facts as we understand them. This briefing is adjourned. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good day.
A gruesome attack along the MacArthur Causeway in which one man ate the face off another has created a worldwide frenzy. A Miami Herald security camera captured the Memorial Day weekend attack that left a homeless man without a face. Rudy Eugene was a 31-year-old North Miami Beach man who spent the morning at Urban Beach Weekend on Miami Beach. He walked back to the mainland. He first walks into the view of the camera shortly before 2 in the afternoon. He is passed by a bicyclist and then turns on Ronald Poppo. Poppo is a 65-year-old homeless man who is sitting on the walkway. Partially obscured by a palm frond, Eugene can be seen attacking Poppo as a Metromover car passes overhead. For the next 2.5 minutes, the view is obscured until Eugene can be seen throwing his victim down the sidewalk. He continues to attack. 5 minutes after the attack began, Eugene drags his victim further down the sidewalk and appears to tear clothes from him. At 8 minutes into the attack, a bicyclist on the same sidewalk slows and passes the two men. Then a car pulls to the shoulder and pauses next to them. After 15 minutes, a bicyclist walking his bike on the roadway goes by, then rides out of sight. A minute later, another cyclist rides by. Nearly 18 minutes after the attack began, a police car comes the wrong way up the ramp and stops. The officer casually walks towards the two men, stops abruptly, backs up, and draws his gun. Miami police officer Jose Ramirez fired at least 5 times to stop the attack. The view is obscured. Another police car arrives a minute later, then another. The commotion has alerted security guards, and the camera pans back to reveal a road ranger truck, then zooms in. The legs of the two men lying on the sidewalk can be seen. Poppo, on the right, is writhing. A dozen police officers can be seen at the scene.
There was a horrifying naked cannibal attack in Miami. It involved a 31-year-old by the name of Rudy Eugene, and he was found literally eating the face off another naked victim.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I mean, first of all, this is the best anti-drug ad in history, because they think that it might have had to do with some LSD, some bad LSD he took, and that's a trip you don't want to take. Now, when the cops approached him, it's first because a bystander had seen him and tried to get him off, and he wouldn't come off. The cops come, and now you're seeing pictures of their legs underneath the bridge there, and you can see that, of course, they didn't have clothes on, and the cops tried to get him off, and he wouldn't come off, so the cops shot him once, and the guy continued to eat the other guy's face.
In fact, when the police official originally told him to stop eating the victim's face, he looked up at the officer and growled. Okay, so he was that high that he was acting in that manner. Anyway, as you mentioned, he got shot. And also, a police official said, quote, 75 to 80% of his face, the victim's face, was missing.
And he went on to also say he was actually swallowing pieces of the man's face. Now, of course, after the first gunshot, the guy didn't stop, as Anna told you, so then he had to be shot several more times, and he's dead. The victim, amazingly, is not dead. He's in critical condition, but he's in a hospital in the Miami area, and he's still alive. And apparently the LSD-like substance that this Rudy Eugene took was called bath salts, which of course makes me never want to take bath salts, or by the way, any drug, period.
The toxicology report is out, and it indicates that the Miami cannibal was not, in fact, on bath salts. So I have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings about this because A, it proves the fact that the media went crazy way too early and reported that he was on bath salts. Look, I did so as well, but that was because you had credible news organizations saying that this cannibal was on bath salts. So you're like, oh, I guess it's already confirmed. But the toxicology report does indicate that he was not on bath salts. In fact, the only drug that was found in his system was marijuana.